Good evening, everyone. This is Cinnamon Noir. And welcome back to another episode of my addiction, Spelunky. Now, fortunately, we managed to get a lot of the, sort of explanatory stuff out of the way last time, so hopefully this time I'll be able to be a little more loose, and funny with the commentary, but you never know. So here's an interesting thing you can do with these little stones you push around. If you flip off the side of them, you can actually phase through the wall, which is something that you can use to push them to the side in cases like that one where they would block you off. Ordinarily, you just have to use a bomb there. But one thing about playing this game 6,000 times, I have learned lots of little weird things about its mechanics. Ah, yes. Did I mention the second one? Yeah, except in that game, you can't blow up the casino if you lose. Whereas in this game, you can. In fact, that little thing there, where it's showing the gloves, that is not just a display. That's really an object that's in there, and if you blow up the floor, you'll get it. You'll also aggro every shopkeeper in here. This is the funny thing about the black market in general, is that if you've aggravated a single shopkeeper throughout the mission, the black market becomes Death Pit 101. Because there's 8 shopkeepers in here. Well, maybe that's an overstatement. And they'll all be trying to kill you. If you attack one of the shopkeepers here or blow up the floor, they'll, again, be trying to kill you. So, you can get a lot of stuff here for free if you're willing to go the, complete murder route. But it's not easy. Luckily, I was still able to save the Damsel. Or the Manzel, as people sometimes call. People sometimes call the male damsel that. In the full-price version of Spelunky, it's actually a little more obvious because the male damsel doesn't look like the spelunker. He has his own appearance. Actually, he's kind of a buff guy in a loose-fitting t-shirt with blonde hair. So it was almost like with that they were trying to get over the, the bias thing, because they're like, look, this is an objectified male figure. You can also rescue dogs in that game if you choose. They're pugs, of course. Apparently, we entered this stage where society just decided pugs were cute. Pretty soon here, we're going to be getting the first of the items that I wanted to show off. Which is the knife. I don't believe I've shown the knife yet. But before we begin it, let's give it a little introduction, like in Team Fortress 2. The knife is a lot like the knife in Castlevania. It's kind of mildly useful, but overall not particularly great. You'll see how it actually functions in just a second here. Here I was just opening up the chest that gets you the Eye of Horus. As I was mentioning earlier, in an update that's coming pretty soon, we are actually going to get to the City of Gold, which I have failed to do miserably last time. But here's the knife. It replaces the whip while you're carrying it and becomes your basic attack. It has a little arc that goes just above your head and to either side. It's debatable, particularly it's very useful at close range, especially against enemies that take a lot of hits to defeat. But the thing is, in this game, you can often avoid the enemies that take lots of hits, and many of the ones you have to confront can be beaten with one jump, or one whip. So really, the hard thing is not getting hit by them, not necessarily managing to destroy them. Sometimes it's hard to stay out of their way. But another difficult thing about the knife is that, unlike the whip, the knife will hurt damsels. So if you use it carelessly, you can end up carving them up by mistake and killing them. That's one reason I don't often use it. That's just frustrating. Anyway, here I'm showing off the web gun. The thing about the web gun is it shoots out a web just like the giant spiders do. And what I'm showing here is that you can use it to kind of surf up any little pit. It's very clumsy, though. Not nearly as good as a rope. But I just thought it was kind of cool that my character is hovering in midair like this. It does. That's one of the things about the web gun. The webs have some interesting physics to them. They persist for a long time if no one's in them, but they deteriorate if you walk through them or if you jump through them. What the web gun is most useful for is slowing enemies down that are very quick, because any enemies besides spiders that walk into them will get caught. Spiders, of course, can walk around them unimpeded. Actually, this is kind of an interesting thing. I've been reading a book about this kind of stuff lately. Do you know why spiders don't get caught in their own webs? It's not anything special about the spiders, actually. The thing is that spiders initially spin the web out of non-sticky threads. They only put the sticky stuff on it once they're done spinning the web. Not only that, but they only stick up certain parts of it. So the spider, since the spider made it, knows where the sticky and non-sticky parts of the web are. Spiders, there's nothing special about their legs, they're just careful. I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, there's no special, like, non-sticking thing to spiders. There's also no special sticking thing to spiders, so Spider-Man's powers make no sense at all. Okay, I'm showing off a few other things here. This is the cape. As long as you have it, if you press the jump button while you're in midair, the cape will arrest your fall, and you can do some lovely skydiving. I'm also getting the climbing gloves, which means that you can adhere to any wall. So basically, I now have Spider-Man powers. How appropriate we're talking about him. This never even occurred to me. I have gone through all the Spider-Man powers. I've been web-slinging. I can climb up walls. The only thing I can't do that Spider-Man can do is deliver pizza, but really, that's kind of an obvious skill. So one thing I picked up in the black market is the pitching mitt. The pitching mitt enhances your throwing ability, so that instead of throwing something just a few feet, you throw it basically across the room. As you can see here with me trying to place the bomb, it's actually not the best thing in the world. I lump it along with the spring shoes as a power-up that I actually don't like to get, because they interfere with the basic mechanics of the game, and if you've gotten really used to how the character controls, it doesn't matter that these are enhancements, they still mess up your flow. Oh, okay, we finally get a new item. I've been stalling long enough. Oh. So, that's the teleporter. When you use it, it puts you forward a certain distance, like a random one. That was me crouching down in despair. Crouching down, for me, is like the fetal position for these characters. That's what just happened. So the answer is yes. This is the thing. When you use that teleporter, the distance it teleports you, both horizontally and vertically, is random. Or I guess, technically it's not random. It's a weird thing. It's based on where you are in the room. So it's sort of like when you have it, that thing is set for every point in the room, but then it always stays the same. So if you teleport from one point in the room, it will always take you to the same other point, but it's not predictable, is what I'm saying. The teleporter is a real mixed bag to try to use. The thing about it, though, is you can use it to get the headdress, that headjet, when you don't have the Ankh. Normally you have to die right in front of the statue in order to get it. But if you have the teleporter, you can teleport into the tiny space, the literally 2-pixel tall space inside the statue. It's very difficult, though, and it's totally random as to whether it works. More often, you'll just teleport into the statue itself and die. Oh, I forgot to mention, since this is an item show-off, I just got the spring boots. You'll notice I'm jumping 1 frame higher than normal. That's what they do for you. No, I don't, because the thing is, I'm used to my jump distance, and I factor that in when I'm making decisions. So if I jump too high, I'll actually overshoot. Another thing is that it's really easy to jump right into an obstacle that you didn't expect to hit. I don't know, this game, it has such tight controls normally that any deviation from them seems really floaty. And welcome back to Spelunky. And this time, we are going to do something with ourselves. We're going to be a contender. We're going to go for the gold. And by that I mean we're going to make it to the City of Gold. That's almost the entire point of this particular run-through, is just to show you guys what it looks like. In the old style one. In the new one, it looks somewhat different. So this might be a good time to point out my theory of ropes, bombs, and hearts in Spelunky. So in Spelunky, your 3 major assets, I would say, are 1, your health, 2, the bombs, and 3, ropes. And they're exactly in that order in terms of value. Health is the most valuable of the 3, because you can get hit a lot, and every time you have 1 more hit point, it's 1 more time you can get beat up and still keep playing. So that's why I always recommend using up at least 1 rope or 1 bomb to get a Damsel if it's required. Maybe even using 1 of each. Although if it goes beyond that, it might get to the point where it's not worth it. Of course, I rescue damsels anyway, just because it's part of what I've internalized in my character. But so bombs are more valuable than ropes. Generally speaking, there's often two ways to get to something. Like, for instance, you could bring a rope up to it, or you could throw a bomb into the wall to make a stepped staircase for yourself. In that case, it's generally better to use the rope. But one of the best things about Spelunky is that the procedural nature of it, the roguelike nature of it, means that it presents you with lots of different types of opportunities. And there's some where it's better to use bombs, and some where it's better to use ropes. And also, you get to throw sticky bombs at spiders and watch them explode. Okay, we talk about Undertale way too much, but what do you think of the inclusions that came from Kickstarter in Undertale? Things like Muffet. A lot of people seem to think she's, like, really great, and that I don't get. It's like, she's really random. I understand it's a random world, but... No, it was a pretty clever concept for a boss fight. The boss fights in Undertale are great. Everyone agrees on that. The problem is they're about, like, 6 or 7% of the content in the game. There's relatively few boss fights. I also thought, this is kind of a weird thing, but the in-universe explanation for the way boss fights work was horrible. The fact that, like, Azrael and Toriel and Asgore are all a type of creature called boss monsters, whose souls last longer when they die, and they don't age unless they have children. It's like, what is this fanfic bullcrap? You don't? Well, I'm telling you now. Asgore's species is literally called boss monster. It is weird. It's like in Disgaea, when the second boss you fight in Disgaea is called mid-boss. Although that's actually something that's done a little more cleverly. Do you mind if I spoil something for you in Disgaea? Okay, so let's talk a bit about Disgaea. Disgaea is this strategy RPG, kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics, or Ogre Battle, stuff like that. Or Fire Emblem. We play a lot of Fire Emblem. Disgaea is like Fire Emblem if you don't care about your troops at all, and you can always make more. No, seriously, you just make more troops. Yeah, exactly. The best ones are Prinnies. The whole game takes place in the underworld, and basically your troops are all demons, and your main character is a demon. And so Prinnies are the souls of, like, serious die-hard criminals. People who are so bad that when they die, their souls get trapped in penguins. And not just any penguins, penguins that explode when they're thrown at anything. Like, if something even touches them, they explode. That's their punishment, is basically an eternity of explosions. But the plot of Disgaea is that you are, or your main character is, the prince of the underworld, whose name is Laharl. His father, King Krishevskoy, I think is his name, was the king, but he died while Laharl was taking a nap. This nap ended up lasting a really long time, so Laharl basically wakes up and finds out that not only is his dad dead, but all the other major demons in the meantime have been fighting each other to try to figure out who's going to become king, ignoring his obvious claim to the throne. So Laharl sets out to reclaim his rightful rule as the king of all demons. And while you play, you actually run into heaven and earth in addition to the underworld. It turns into this really big overarching plot where there's a conspiracy against angels and demons. It's like a Dan Brown book, but it's actually funny and interesting. Anywho, to get to my actual point, the whole point of the first part of the game is that you're trying to fight these other demons in order to become the king of demons. And the second one you fight is this really, like, prissy Bishonen type guy who has his own name, but Laharl just calls him Mid-Boss because Laharl is very genre savvy. So you fight Mid-Boss, and then Mid-Boss keeps recurring. Like, he keeps coming back again and again in the game. And eventually you realize, you're told, that this so-called Mid-Boss is actually Laharl's father. He never really died. Instead, he basically was some kind of palace coup happened, and he took on this form in order to keep himself safe. And he goes after Laharl. The reason why he keeps coming back is to protect Laharl. I can't really do Disgaea justice, because it's got a very long plot and a very interesting gameplay style. I also have only played a very small amount of it, but, you know, that's just a little bit of, you know, something to spice up your day. That's Disgaea. So this was a lucky break for me. This is one of those cases where the initial spawn point sets up something that already does your work for you. One of these traps right next to an exploding frog. I always thought there was some poetic justice in that. The spike trap kills the frog, and then the frog blows up, and the spike trap's destroyed. Not that these spike traps have any, like, sentience or anything, but because they have faces printed on them, I like to think they're malevolent. My attitude toward them is kind of like Ahab's attitude toward the whale in Moby Dick. Only I don't have a Starbuck telling me that I'm really weird for hating an inanimate object. I guess in an age when people play video games, it'd be kind of weird if anyone told you it's stupid to hate an inanimate object, because everyone who's played a game knows what it's like to hate an inanimate object. Heck, my father will sometimes curse out Word documents while he's working on them. That's the ultimate being upset by a thing. It's not even like something that looks like a character, it's just a thing on a computer screen. But Word can get very annoying. Do you use a lot of MS Office in your work? Mm-hmm. Are you required to use the new versions? 2013? The ones that are software as a service? God, what a bullcrap concept that was. Software as a service. Basically, it means you pay us for something 10 times instead of once. Is that good? It's good for us. Everything is turning into World of Warcraft. That's why Blizzard shut down that old Warcraft server. They're trying to distract everybody from the fact that everything is World of Warcraft. It's the Alliance Minati. I can't come up with a good portmanteau for that. Let's see. What's a World of Warcraft themed Opus Dei pun? I'm trying to think of it and I can't. Anyway, no, this software as a service thing came in at exactly the same time that we had the cloud computing boom. But the whole idea of cloud computing is just, instead of having your own servers, or servers run by someone else, have servers run by us. That will go down whenever we do anything wrong. This is the Go for the Gold edition. Finally, I managed to do what I'm supposed to do, which is to get inside that statue. Because I have the spectacles, I can see the headjet from inside it. From outside it. But once you die near that statue, you will go inside it, and you have a chance to pick up the headjet. In the original game, a lot of people got annoyed because it's easy to accidentally press up while you're inside it, and leave the level before you get the item, even after you've spent all that time trying to get there. This is one of the reasons why in the new one, you have to press spacebar to go through to the exit. Although it's still entirely possible to miss out on it in the new one. You just have to be a little more clumsy to do it. Yeah, it's kind of an awe moment. I've been to the City of Gold lots of times, though, so on a normal run, I'm not that pissed off when I don't manage to get in. One thing that was really upsetting early on, though, is they fixed this in the new one. In the old Spelunky, I don't know if this was a bug just in certain versions of it, or like if you did something wrong, but sometimes if you die in the level where the giant head is, but you're too far away from it, it will not spawn you inside the head like it's supposed to. Instead, it spawns you at the entrance to the level, like it would if you died with an Ankh anywhere else in the game. And that is frustrating. To like you're trying to kill yourself, literally, but you kill yourself the wrong way, and then you come back wrong. It's like you're a Viking or something. Whenever you press the normal attack button while you're holding the scepter, it will emit one of those purple beams of light, which oddly enough are the same beams that get shot by aliens, like the giant aliens. Say what? They can't. I once thought that they could, but they don't. I initially thought the idea was that it will go after the nearest living thing. So if you're stupid and use it when no one else is around, it'll hurt you. But that's not actually true. The things can't damage you at all. They can damage damsels, though. And they will go after the nearest living thing, so you can screw yourself over with this if you're not careful. What's odd is that with the beams that it shoots out being the same as the beams from aliens, it kind of suggests that sci-fi and magic are the same power in this world. Oh, so it's powered by alien magic stuff. Chariots of the Gods. My mind is so blown right now. I mean, I knew Spelunky had a lot of different stuff in it. I did not know that it had like Eric Dunnican, whatever his name is, Chariots of the Gods stuff in it. You've heard of Chariots of the Gods, right? It was this book that was really popular in the 70s, and the basic premise of it was that, you know, all of these things in the ancient world couldn't possibly have been made by mere people, because look at how big they are. It's basically like one of the most ignorant things I've ever heard of in my life. But yeah. I ought to take this opportunity, actually, to talk about this type of level setup. When you hear the thing, when you read it say, I hear prayers to Kali, that means that there's one of these offering setups that you just saw where there's a damsel and a skull side by side. The damsel's just trying to be offered to Kali. You can pick her up with no problems if you can get out of the hole, but it's too big to jump out of, as you can see. However, if you pick up the skull, then the thing below you will instantly disappear and you will fall into a lava pit, which is far below. One of the nice things about this, though, is that if you have a jetpack or something like that and you can maneuver around so that you can blow up the bottom of the lava pit. Maybe I forgot to mention, if you blow up the bottom of a lava pit in this game, you will get rid of the lava. But if you do that in this pit, you will get gems. There's lots of gems in the bottom of it. Notice anything different about that last screen? All the bricks were gold. So here we are, finally, in the City of Gold. Isn't it magical? Literally everything in this place is made of gold. It's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory if Willy Wonka was a dwarf. Which he kind of was a dwarf in the original book. He was very short. But he wasn't obsessed with gold. Instead, he was obsessed with getting his revenge on children. I love the fact that, you know, Roald Dahl's books have always been very popular among a certain type of reader, of young reader. But Roald Dahl has always really hated most children. You can tell from his books. In his books, there's constant, like, caricatures of children, really nasty, childish characters. The only one where most of the children are nice and the adults aren't is the witches. Which is horrifying, by the way. But anyway, the reason is, I think, that Roald Dahl, what he liked was really quiet, introspective, precocious children, like Matilda. So, children who are bookish, who read a lot of books, like Roald Dahl, they also hate children. That's what they have in common with Roald Dahl, because they hate their peers. This is me just doing a little dance in time with the music to celebrate the fact that I finally did this frickin' thing. It took way too many tries to get here. I'm also showing when you throw a rope over a lava pit, the lava will start to burn it up. So you only have a very short amount of time to use it. You sound fascinated, Craig. This is so incredibly interesting. I'm not falling asleep. You're burning the candle at both ends, Craig. You can't do that. You gotta be careful with your wicks. No, so I pick up a shotgun here. Very useful in the fight against Olmec. Whoa. Oh, I forgot to mention, you can ride Olmec if you get on top of his head. It's very fun in kind of a never-ending story type of way. Just barreling through the air, you know. But you gotta be very careful, because I think there is a way to accidentally get sort of... You go from being above him to below him. I don't know how that happens, but if you do, he'll squish you immediately. So I'm kind of in trouble here. Anytime when you're trying to fight Olmec with no ropes and no bombs is very difficult, because you need to create this sort of stepped pattern. Because otherwise, you'll kill him, but you won't be able to get back up. And you'll have no choice but to jump into the lava below. That's the reason why it's there, so that you can beat it. Although, one thing you can do, I haven't mentioned this in this game, is that there is a self-kill button. You can use it when you get into a position where you can't escape, but you also can't die. Although, what's odd is, that wasn't actually a necessary inclusion, strictly speaking, because if you wait too long in any particular level, the ghost will come to get you, and it's an insta-kill. But that's a long time to wait. It doesn't, which is why the self-kill button is actually kind of a nice feature. The other thing I should have mentioned is that once you get the Hedget, the ghost will never spawn in another level again. The Hedget kind of keeps it away. If you also find a dark level afterwards, the Hedget will make the same, like, halo of light appear around you that you would have with a torch, so you don't have to carry one. So it's sort of like a holy artifact. I actually mentioned earlier that the Ujat Eye, as it's called in this game, is based on the Eye of Horus, which is a very important Egyptian symbol. I didn't mention that the Hedjet is based on the traditional Egyptian 2 crowns. Have you seen the 2 crowns of Egypt before? There's 2 crowns because there were 2 kingdoms, the upper and lower kingdom of Egypt. Yeah, the one for lower Egypt, it's sort of got this flat base with a big plume in the back, and the one for upper Egypt is just like a cone, kind of, or a cylinder. So the cylinder one fits into the one that has a base and a plume. And together, they are like a tulip-shaped crown. I always thought it looked pretty cool. And I get killed by a spider. Welcome back to Spelunky, which I said I wasn't going to do any more of, but, well, depending on what order these videos get uploaded, and you might not even know that, so shouldn't have incriminated myself. Anyway, so I was going to say, I wasn't going to do any more of these videos unless I could come up with a condition that would make them interesting. And I actually felt that I came up with a few over the past couple days, so I decided to record a little bit more. They're short videos, so I don't think it'll be too bad for Greg. And besides, it's not like we get much uploaded on the channel on a regular basis anyway, so we could use all of the weird nonsense stuff that we can get. So this is the Pacifist edition. Most games people try to do pacifist runs through. I haven't seen many people try that with Spelunky, for obvious reasons, because it is actually very difficult to go through this game without killing anything. I'm going to try in this video, but this is more of like proof of concept than an actual successful thing, because I do accidentally kill a few. But mostly, the point of this run is that you never deliberately kill any living thing. I'm willing to accept sort of a side thing if you happen to land on them. You know. I often wonder, like, if Sikhs in real life, what do they do if they, like, step on an ant or something, you know? Are you sure that Sikhs know about Undertale? I guess the Pope knows. Sorry, go ahead. The Pope knows about Undertale now, so I guess Sikhs would have to. It's become a very religious thing to play Undertale. It's the closest thing millennials have to a religion. I was also thinking of another thing in regards to this, but I've discovered that it was just a little too difficult to do. My other idea was of a so-called 10 Commandments run. In this one, while you wouldn't have to be totally pacifist, you would basically have to go through the game following the 10 Commandments, as specifically adapted for Spelunky. So some would be obvious, you know, thou shalt not steal. But other ones I interpreted kind of interestingly, like, you know, thou shalt not commit adultery. So in this run, you would only be allowed to save one damsel. See what I mean? Because every time you save a damsel, you get a kiss. There's no such thing as a platonic save in this game. I don't think anyone's ever used the phrase platonic save before. Oh, by the way, something very interesting happened here. Did you notice that bat? So when bats are coming after you, sometimes when you abandon them, they will, instead of flying back up and, like, cloaking themselves, they will fold up their wings and start floating along the top of the screen. I've noticed a lot of times when you go into water after a bat started chasing you, they will float diagonally up towards the top right of the screen, which is amazing. So you might notice here me trying to keep this skull, which, by the way, is another thing you're not allowed to get in the 10 Commandments run, because it's a graven image. Anyway, it involves me taking a lot of damage from these enemies, because I'm not supposed to kill them. Generally speaking, a pacifist run works better when you're not trying to get gold and stuff, because you can just run away from enemies. So this is one case where it's really hard to avoid killing something, because if the arrow killed the snake, it would still be my fault, right? Because I started it. This is also a pain in the ass. Look at this snake going through this tunnel. It's just like, how can I get around this thing? If I tried to leap over it in the tunnel, I would almost certainly jump on top of it and kill it. One of the things also about the 10 Commandments run, which I feel compelled to talk about because I'm probably never going to do it, is that you can't sacrifice anything to Kali, and you can't get the Ujat Eye or the Ankh or any of those things because they're pagan. That thing? Actually, the frog didn't die. I don't know if you'll notice. Or sorry, the blue frog didn't die. Obviously, the orange one did. But thank you for not blaming me for the frog. The fact is, in the jungle, lots of things die completely out of your control. More often than any other place I've noticed in the jungle, damsels will die. Because damsels will often get trapped right next to the orange frogs, and then something will just kill the orange frog, and it explodes, killing the damsel. I mean, I've mentioned before how absurd it is that, like, you know, damsels can be in a single square of space in a wall. And it's like, there's no way anyone would ever end up in this situation. So, apparently there is nothing against my principles about tricking a monkey into leaping off a vine to its death. I'm just not allowed to kill things. I can trick them into killing themselves. If I couldn't do that, this would literally be impossible. Yes, that is true. Actually, by the time of the boss, here's the thing. Let's be honest here. This game was not designed for pacifist play, and it's not ideal for it. This playthrough is kind of a demonstration of why it's not perfect to do it. By the time you get to Olmec, pacifism has to go out the window because so many things show up that there is no way to avoid them dying. I don't count that because I didn't kill them. You know, I stunned them, but I didn't kill them. In the Ten Commandments run, I interpreted "Thou shalt not kill" as referring only to human enemies, because, you know, I don't think that, you know, in the Ten Commandments God ever cared about, you know, killing animals. That's kosher, literally. But, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So, in the Ten Commandments run, if anyone chooses to do that, I don't know if I'm starting a trend here. Probably not, because no one watches this. But in that one, you cannot kill any humanoid enemy. So that includes Yetis. Ugh, sorry about that. That includes Yetis. It includes cavemen. It includes those eagle guys from the temple. I didn't construe it to include aliens, because frankly, I don't think aliens are part of God's plan. Especially since they disproved that whole 6,006 years thing. I don't think God likes aliens. That's my point I'm getting at. Yep. Incidentally, not only do aliens not fall under my ban on killing in the Ten Commandments run, but neither do undead enemies. Exactly. However, I don't know, some of the commandments didn't really apply. It's really hard to make "thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor" into a rule for a game. Most games don't involve courts, and even the ones that do, you're usually not a witness, because that'd be a very boring role in a game. But, there was also "honor thy mother and father." It's like, you know, how can you put that in a game? But I thought, you know, if you consider that a primitive form of ancestor worship, then one way you could do that is by not using skulls for anything. Because skulls are dead people, you know. So you should respect them. That's not the same as skeletons, though, which are undead and therefore should be killed, because they're unholy. It's a very complex theology I have here. I love the fact that I got a jetpack here. It has been actually a really long time since I got a jetpack from a crate in this game, and I felt like the game was rewarding me for trying to be a pacifist. That's probably just wishful thinking, though, because I wasn't even doing a particularly good job. So, I was talking about alternate condition runs, and you and I have been talking about Pokemon a little bit. What do you think about Nuzlocke runs? Me too! I'm glad to hear you say that without any prompting from me. Do you know what? It is. The big problem I have with it is twofold. One is that the pretense seems to be that it's more realistic, but it isn't. The game points out that this is a fight that has rules, and people aren't violating the rules. So it's like in Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, where no, Pokemon don't die. You are not, like, making up for a failing of the original game. The game explicitly states it's just fighting, it's like wrestling. When someone loses, they get knocked out. They don't die. And yes, secondly, it is so easy to get a cheap death from Pokemon. I feel like the Nuzlocke run is an artifact of later Pokemon games where cheap deaths were much less common. But I've been playing through Red recently, and it is so frickin' easy for just a punk Pokemon to cause a KO out of absolutely nowhere. There are so many critical hits in that game. I'm not going to say that the game is totally unfair because, you know, I mean, you get critical hits a lot too. But it seems like the RNG in that game is crazy disposed to favor, like, big flashy stuff happening. lots of critical hits, lots of, you know, special moves with accuracy stuff working. So, like, Hypnosis and Sing work all the time in the first generation. They're really effective, which is annoying, because it means that any enemy you fight with Sing is going to be a pain in the ass. Do they? See, I feel like that. It could be. The thing is, I feel that way, but I always assumed it was just confirmation bias. I never thought I would have actual data to back it up, you know? Well, who knows? But I was talking about this earlier with Craig. Like, the worst Pokemon in the entire world is Bellsprout, because it has Wrap, which is the most frustrating move in the original game, short of Fire Spin, which is just the fire version of Wrap. And it has Sleep Powder, so Bellsprout will put you to sleep, and then use a move that you can't escape from. So even when you wake up, you're still useless. It's just adding insult to injury. I have flipped off my Game Boy maybe 5 times in my life. All of those have been Bellsprout. Every single one. And there are some hard games on Game Boy. But difficulty does not make me curse. Cheapness makes me curse. Anyway, so there's a little Pokemon rant out of absolutely nowhere. But I've been thinking about it a lot. I'm one of those Gen 1ers. I really do love the original Pokemon. It's got a rough-hewn charm to it. That's the way I like to put it. It's rough around the edges, and I like that. I don't like the polish that later games brought to the series. Especially since they make them all look so cute. I like the creepy Pokemon of Gen 1, the ones that look like animals. Like, Pidgey in Gen 1 looks like a freaking... It's just a bird on the screen. There's nothing, like, Pokemon-y about it. Anyway, that's a digression. So, my pacifism has paid off, and we managed to win. You might think from the extensive screening I've done of the videos that we've put up on YouTube that I win a lot in this game. I don't. I win about, like, 2 to 3% of the time. Spelunky is a very low success game. Not so much because it's really difficult, as because it's really easy to die. There's just so many ways to die. But not today. It's not this day, as Aragorn once said. My dad actually likes to quote that line. My dad and I are about equal on the nerdiness scale, although oddly enough I'm more old-fashioned. Anyway, with that observation, I bid you all good night. Thanks for watching.